Hey everyone. Today, Brittni and I are discussing the Ayurvedic concept of Prajnaparadha, or crimes against wisdom. It's when we make a decision that we know is not in alignment with what would be most supportive to our physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual health. So that could be little decisions like eating when you're already full or skipping a meal when you're hungry, as well as some bigger life decisions like staying in an unhealthy work environment, even when it's physically making you sick. We'll talk about how Ayurvedic medicine identifies these choices that go against our inner knowing as the primary cause of disease, and just how human it is to make them. So, we hope that you enjoy this conversation and this opportunity to reflect on some of your crimes against your wisdom as we reflect on ours. And we'll remind you a few times throughout this episode to do so with curiosity and gentleness instead of judgment. As always, thanks so much for being here and for listening, and we hope you enjoy. Welcome to the Ayurveda for Women's Health podcast, where we simplify ancient Ayurvedic wisdom into practical guidance for everyday life. Between the overwhelming wellness trends, quick fixes, and conflicting health advice out there, we return to a science that has been around for thousands of years. I'm Rita, an Ayurvedic health counselor.
And I'm Brittni, an Ayurveda practitioner. In a world that disconnects us from our bodies, we are here to guide you back. Through body literacy, practical tools, and time-tested science, we will help you step boldly into a more empowered, aligned version of yourself. So let's dive in. This podcast is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice. Views expressed do not represent our employers.
Hey, Brittni.
Hi.
I like your glasses.
Thank you. I like yours too.
I feel like we should tell the story of getting glasses on the same day because I feel like it was pretty funny. I can't even know if I remember exactly how it went down, but essentially we were texting one day and I was telling you that I went to an eye doctor for the first time in goodness, 25 years or more. And I ended up needing a glasses prescription. And the funny thing is you also happened to go to the eye doctor on the exact same day, which is also like your first time in 20 something years, and also needed glasses. So it's pretty funny.
Yeah. I hadn't been to the eye doctor since high school. And for whatever reason, I guess it's because we have different coverage this year. And it's like, oh, I might as well go get a checkup. And I went for a checkup on the exact same day that you did, which is so curious. And yeah, here we are both with glasses now.
Well, I mean, we talk about how when we spend more time with women that we sync up. So maybe somehow, I don't know if I could explain that through hormones, but maybe, yeah. We also ended up booking vacations in the same week, which is pretty funny too. So we're just syncing up our lives.
Yeah, basically now I just assume, well, if I'm doing it, Rita's probably doing it. So I can ask her about it. Maybe that's just what happens when you start podcasting with someone.
Maybe. Well, anyway, that was a random little tangent. Do you want to introduce our topic for today?
Yes, this is a fun one. This is a very fun topic. So this comes up a lot in Ayurveda and our conversations, and I think it's probably one of the first things that you learn. I think we learned about this early in Ayurveda school, and it's really interesting first learning about Prajnaparadha and crimes against wisdom is what that means in Sanskrit. And it's this concept of having this inner knowing and this inner wisdom and doing the opposite or doing something anyways that goes against it. And it sounds a little kind of silly when we, to first say it is crimes against wisdom. What does that mean? But it really is kind of interesting when you notice it for yourself. And when yeah, like when we first started learning about it, and then I would notice it, John and I would joke about it all the time. So we were like, oh, wait, that's Prajnaparadha. Don't do it. So it became like a good way to start to learn and kind of connect with this deeper wisdom that lives within us and having this awareness of it and what it actually means as we move through life.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I really appreciate about this concept, this crimes against wisdom, which Ayurveda looks at as one of the primary causes of dis-ease, actually, is these crimes against wisdom. But what I really appreciate it is how truly human this is, considering that this was written about in these texts from thousands of years ago. I think I have a tendency sometimes to kind of romanticize the past and when people didn't have as much technological distraction as we have now, and we're forced to live more in sync with the land and eat seasonally and go to sleep with the darkness and wake up with the sun and so on. They were still having and committing crimes against wisdom, these crimes against intellect, right? It's a very, very human thing that we all do that is something I like how you started off the conversation kind of laughing, because I do think it's good to bring some humor to this and just laugh about the humanness of it. And I'm sure we'll share a lot of examples, maybe personally with that. But I do think it's such an important thing to also tune into as we think of that as that primary cause of dis-ease in the body, whether it's like microaggressions in terms of things like, last night I kind of got carried away and I'm revamping some certain parts of my website, and I'm just really excited about it. I'm completing an Ayurvedic postpartum doula training this weekend. And so I'm starting to think about how that offering's going to look to my community. And I was all excited, like playing with my website, doing some things. And then I kept looking at the clock and being like, oh, it's 9 o'clock. Oh, it's 9:30. Oh, it's 10 o'clock. And knowing that I had a really busy day and would have benefited from going to bed earlier, but just, that crime against wisdom happens. So whether it's little microaggressions like that or kind of bigger examples of when we're committing these crimes against our inner knowing, it's really human, but it's something to pause and tune into.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and that I resonate a lot with that example too of being I think that's like where the pitta is like, no, I want to finish this whole project and I'm really excited about it and I don't want to sleep until it's done. I can definitely get lost on my website or, work stuff and just being involved in something that feels exciting. But I know that, wait, this is my wind down time for bed. And I know I'll feel better tomorrow if I get good quality sleep and am in bed at this time. And it's such an easy one. It makes me think about, well, like what were their crimes like thousands of years ago if
Mm.
they didn't have computers to get sucked into? like, like what were their crimes?
Right? Yeah. That is really interesting to reflect on. I mean, really going back thousands of years, not just hundreds of years, but thousands of years. I mean, I guess you can think back thousands of years. There's a caste system in India, so there's lots of crimes in terms of corruption and things of that nature. Not to bring us on a whole different tangent, but yeah, it is an interesting thing to reflect on.
Yeah, and I think it's having the awareness and starting to recognize where it's showing up for you. Like there's probably stuff that I did today that it's like, oh, it's crime against wisdom, right? I mean, I think food can be like an easy one to notice, maybe is the way to think about it, where yeah, it's like, okay, it's coffee season. I love ice cream. Is this like really supportive for me right now? But I love ice cream. So I think that's one that like the awareness piece is changing how we can think about what's supportive and what's not supportive and like what is our body actually asking for? Is our body asking? Is our mind asking? Is it our habits asking? Is it our emotions? Like what's kind of at the heart of those decisions when we're making them and thinking about them?
Yeah, and I guess reflecting on why we commit these crimes against wisdom,
Mm.
right? We're following the path of least resistance. We're following the path of comfort often when we either, eat the ice cream that's right in front of us. We stay up late. We keep keep watching on Netflix or whatever we're streaming, or even like staying in the same job day after day or same relationship or whatever it may be. It's going to be the path of least resistance and the path of comfort to just keep going with it. Right. And it's hard sometimes to break out of those things.
Yeah, and that's really like that mental connection to that brain connection where it's easy to move in that direction of what we know and what we already know, and kind of changing that habit, or having that awareness and then being able to change your decision or your next step once you have that awareness is hard. It like takes a lot of work, right? Because we're rewiring our brain with like a new direction and a new pattern. And that's something that takes time and practice and commitment. And, it doesn't happen overnight, right? Like we are always going to choose that path that feels easy. So I think this concept that you can actually be like committing a crime against your own wisdom to things that may feel really subtle can bring a kind of a different perspective to it and what it means for your health. And maybe that's a helpful kind of piece to go into. But Ayurveda really teaches us that when we're living out of alignment with our wisdom, we're giving disease an opportunity to manifest. And to maybe make that a little bit more tangible and practical is, I'm just going to use food as an example because I think it's just a very relatable way of thinking about it is, and I'll give the example that I gave, right? If I'm having ice cream in kapha season, well, I'm adding excess quality to excess quality in the season where it's predominant. And so that over time is going to add excess accumulation of kapha in my body. That's going to allow disease to manifest because I'm creating an imbalance. Whereas if I'm listening to my intuition, which sometimes that might be ice cream and that's fine, but sometimes it may not be. And that's that distinction that only whoever is making that decision can know, right? That's that inner knowing, that piece. And it's not someone told me to eat this at this very specific time. It is this connection to your own body and your own awareness and your own balance or imbalance and the decisions you can make to move towards what you want. And when we start to shape our lives from a place of maybe making decisions based on people pleasing, right? Or just checking the boxes, or so-and-so told me to do this, right? We're not actually taking our own agency over what's best for ourselves. And that's where that manifestation of disease, we're like giving it this platform to have a presence. So that's the way that I see it with that connection, is to living in alignment with yourself, and only you know what's best for you, right? And I think that's part of this podcast and these conversations we're having is like, yes, here's this information, here's this system of medicine, but every person is uniquely individual, and that's the medicine, right? And that's like the true heart of finding health and finding balance and longevity for your own individual being.
Yeah. And I think that at the end of the day, that is truly what Ayurveda is all about, is helping you learn how to connect with, whether we call it your inner physician, your intuition, your body, whatever we want to call this guide, this inner knowing that we all have, but we all can easily get so disconnected from. And especially, I think you could talk about it in current culture and the people-pleasing thing you mentioned, and just societal norms and all of those different factors that come into play. But, I think it's an important topic to bring up. Like, it's something I've talked about with a couple of my clients recently who I think have fallen into a place that I also fell into when I was first learning Ayurveda, thinking of our self-care practices and herbs and food and so on, of these like things that I'm supposed to do and things that I'm not supposed to do. And I like to reframe that is, a lot of what we're doing, particularly when we think about dinacharya and daily routines, is we're really creating this space to take inventory. We're creating this pause in your life that you can pause and say, okay, what is it that I really actually need right now? And I think what I really enjoy is with several of my clients right now, there's this theme happening of, well, what I really need right now is to not be so rigid and to not be so strict with my Ayurvedic daily routines and, to just go out and go to the social event and not feel like, oh, I need to like bring this Ayurvedic dish so that I have something that can support my digestion, but I'm just going to go to the party and I'm just going to eat what's there and I'm going to eat it in a mindful way. Or "Oh, I'm going to skip my daily routines and sleep in this morning because that is what my intuition is telling me that I need the most is just like to take some time and rest or take some time um and just kind of do my thing, whatever that may be." But I think it's an interesting concept because it's like that question that comes up all the time of, look, how do I tell that that's actually my intuition and not just my mind trying to lead me into this path of least resistance and what would feel best? And I think at the end of the day, it's a practice and something that we're all trying to figure that out and explore that. And it really just comes down to creating enough space in your life to pause and zoom out and reflect on what qualities are going on in excess and like what you really need.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I've seen this too, and I've felt this myself with being introduced to Ayurveda and how to integrate this into my life. It can very easily feel like, oh, here's the checklist, and if I'm not doing it, then I'm not doing it
Hmm.
right. And I think that's just so ingrained in our culture of like that black and whiteness of where it's just like cut and dry, right? It's either yes or no. The body has such an ability to read between the lines, if you will, and like to have those gray areas that can feel good and like feel supportive. And it doesn't have to be, well, if I'm not waking up at this time every day, then I'm doing it wrong. It is that piece, like you're saying, like really listening to like what does my body need right now. And what I love about these tools, especially with the dinacharya, that pause is woven into the medicine, right? And that is the part of the medicine where we are having a pause integrated to, create this space for asking those questions. Whereas modern culture is like, you wake up, you do this, then you go to work, you do this, and this is your timeline. And then by the time you get home, you're exhausted and burnt out, and there's no pause. And so part of understanding this concept is understanding that it's not if I follow the rules, I will have no disease. It's more this noticing yourself and connecting with yourself and truly listening to what that need is. And that need can look different on different days. And that's okay. And that's a part of nature, right? Nature looks different on different days and has different needs on different days, depending on all these other factors. So yeah, it sounds like somewhat whimsical when I say it like that, but so much of this system isn't black and white. And that's the purpose of it, is that it's individualized medicine. Right. It's not this way for everyone.
Yeah. And when we're working with clients, like that clinical aspect is us recommending the herbs and the foods and the practices and so on in alignment with what's going on in someone's constitution and imbalances. But really, I always say my main goal is helping you recognize that you are your greatest healer and that you have that inner wisdom in you. And really, it's like, I'm going to give these recommendations, but you're trying these things on. And then we're creating this space for you to observe. How did this herb feel in your body? How did this practice feel in your body? We grow up in this system where we're really used to outsourcing that power. And that to me is what Ayurveda is all about, is helping us regain that power and regain that connection with ourselves so that it's not just tuning into what someone recommended, like you were saying earlier, but really that day to day being able to pause and tune in and seeing like, what is it that's actually most important for me, right now in this moment, and knowing that that's going to change too.
Yeah, totally. It's like, where's that source, right? And when our source is so much external output, right? That yang energy, the drying, depleting, heating, stimulating energy, and less of that yin energy, which is the inner knowing and the wisdom and the coolness and the juiciness and the feminine energy. If we're not sourcing from there, we're sourcing from very external expectations and views and decision making, and less of the internal wisdom that exists within us. It just hasn't had a chance to. I think a lot of people haven't been given a chance to trust that. And I think that's what I see. I've even had clients that follow up session like, I did all the things. And I'm like, great. Well, how did they feel? What do you mean? I did them. Like, I'm like, well, yeah, but how do they feel? Like, it is, right? It's like that connection, like you're saying, let's, explore that, because it makes sense if we haven't been taught that, because that's not on the broader scale how our system has been set up, right? So we can very easily lose touch with what that wisdom is and being able to trust it. I think that can be like the next step too, is like, okay, now I'm aware that I'm starting to learn that I can follow what my body is offering, and my body is giving me information, and there are communication tools that are being shared, and you can trust that, right? I think that's the second step, because we are outsourcing so much. Oh, this popped up, let me Google my symptoms, and like, oh, this popped up, let me call my doctor, and like, what does this mean? Tell me what this means. But there's this other piece, I think, of this whole concept that is, what does it mean to you?
Mhm.
And how do you feel about that? And I think that that's like the deeper layer of the
Yeah,
conversation.
absolutely. Again, I come back to the humanness of these crimes against wisdom, the humanness of making these decisions that we know aren't the most supportive for our bodies, for our minds, whatever it may be. Scrolling can be a big one for me personally, that I have all these intense blockers on my phone to reduce screen time, but inevitably I can
Mm.
still find myself on like a YouTube real rabbit hole sometimes. I'm like, how did I get here? Right? Like, how did this happen? And then even still we'll like continue scrolling for a little bit, right? Like we all end up in these really, really human experiences of these crimes against wisdom. But I think what can get interesting is to just look at our own patterns and to just use this podcast as a opportunity to pause and say like, okay, what are my greater crimes that are happening, and is that reflective of a grander crime? Again, if we're looking at how we're living our day to day, and those bigger factors, our relationships with where we're living, how we're working, who we're living with, who we're communicating with, etc. Like sometimes I think the microcosm crimes can almost be like a distraction from the macrocosm crimes. And I think it can be important to look at both levels. But I think sometimes when we're maybe staying in a job that's just destroying our health, that's a huge stressor that's destroying our health, maybe then we're finding situations that we're numbing and distracting away from that. So sometimes it's not about those little tendencies. It's those little tendencies are showing up more because of the bigger crime against wisdom that's happening.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Yeah, I'm glad you said that. I think that can be very common, right? Like staying complacent and feeling like you're not able to make a change. And that complacency can lead to those smaller decisions of just trying to feel better in smaller ways, which the body is just looking for dopamine, right? And it's looking to feel better. It's looking for happiness. It's looking for joy. And it's finding it in these easy pathways, like you're saying, scrolling or indulging or whatever. I think it's such a great point to like not overlook either of them as a contributor to your health. It reinforces the person that you may not want to be and that you may not be happy with. And I think that it gives us this excuse to continue to be this person without being able to make a change, because that change is what's hard. So we continue to commit these small micro crimes against wisdom, even when we know, but it's this way of kind of overriding ourselves from actually making the change and stepping into the person that we believe we are and that we believe we can be. It keeps us complacent and keeps us in this safe place without challenging us.
Yeah, as you were describing that, I was personally reflecting a bit. So I have a birthday coming up next month. I'm turning 37, and I'm somebody who always makes a big deal out of birthdays. Not that I'm like trying to go, celebrate on the town or make a big deal in that sense. I've always looked at birthdays as our own little like portal to just pause and really reflect and think like, okay, we've gone a whole trip around the sun in this year, and like how are we living, and what aspects of my life am I sort of living in intention? Like I'm intentionally building and creating the world that I want to live in and be a part of, and what I want to see different. And then what are these other parts of what I'm doing in this year that aren't in alignment with that? And so I think that's really connected to this topic that we're talking about. And again, we keep coming back to the same answer. The goal is never that you're going to get to a place where you're not committing crimes against wisdom. The goal is that you're regularly checking in and gleaning information from that and making these sort of micro adjustments or course corrections from that. And I think when I say I make a big deal about birthdays, I will take off a day and often go on a hike and spend some time in my birthday journal that I write in every year. And that's this big event that I do once a year. But I think finding little moments of that we can do throughout our months, throughout our weeks, or even in our days, that's just that check-in piece.
Yeah, and I think, keeping it light to your point, like you're not doing anything wrong. I guess I just still like see so many clients come to me now and we'll have a follow-up session and they're still just like so hard on
Yeah.
themselves for not doing something or doing too much of something or just like not finding a balance that feels supportive. And I think that can just be so harmful to growth, right? And to progress, where if we are constantly down on ourselves, like, oh, another day I didn't do this, another day I didn't do this. And like that then becomes your normal. And then you expect that. Then the brain starts to expect that, right? And so if we can lighten that up just a little bit, like just bring in some kapha to that, right? Like soften that pitta and that vata. Like it doesn't have to be so sharp and rigid. It can be okay, well, I'm going to try it just like a little bit differently tomorrow. It doesn't have to be like all in, right? The all or nothing. We can approach it in a soft way and be gentle with ourselves. And I think that's an important piece in making change where it can feel very, oh, well, every day this week I've just done the same thing. So I'm just going to keep doing the same thing.
Yeah.
It's okay. We can restart at any moment. We don't have to restart at a certain when everything's perfect.
Yeah. I think the phrase that I say the most in my practice is, oh, well, that's very human of you. Like when I have clients come to me and they're like, oh, well, I fell off track with this, or I didn't end up getting to this, or, oh, I did this. I'm like, oh, yeah, it's very human of you. And I think sometimes that's that phrase that we
Yeah.
need to bring in more to ourselves. Because to your point, we can just, I see that so much in my practice as well. And it's interesting how that's even helped me with that in seeing how many other people are also doing that. Because again, I think we don't realize how intense and how much we're shaming ourselves as women until we have the conversation and realize that we're all doing that. And maybe that's not something exclusive to women, but I work primarily with women and I just see that so frequently. And yeah, I think that's what I'm glad that we're bringing to this conversation. It's like, yeah, let's reflect on the crimes against wisdom and let's like course correct and be curious and all the things, but also like how funny is it that we all do this? Like how interesting is it that as humans, like we know these things that we should do and then we do the opposite. Like we're silly creatures as humans.
Yeah, we're also adaptable and changeable. And I think like remembering
Yeah.
that piece of it too. It's like, oh yeah, that was a weird okay, that was a curious decision that I made, but I know next time I want to go in this direction. And I can just let it go and move forward. And I think when we just get so hung up on past decisions, there is this just like you can wipe the slate clean at any time. Like you don't have to wait for the world to just be covered in like glitter and rainbows for you to be able to start, right? Like just like start now. Start now. Like step out of your car, step out of your house with like an open heart and an open mind, and there's always an opportunity to reflect and to pause and to move forward as the person that you envision yourself, right? And eventually, if you keep moving forward in that, like you become that person. You probably already are that person. and you're still going to commit crimes against wisdom as that person. So I think that's also part of this is like, it's never perfect. No one's ever perfect. And that's okay too.
Yeah. We're just all on this round of Earth School, just figuring out different lessons and coming into life with different purposes and different karmas, different dharmas, all these different things that are deeper conversations. But really just reflecting on, again, our humanness and bringing it back to we're all evolving and growing and trying to just figure it out together.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Well, maybe to think of another example, I may have told you this in the past because it's actually a hilarious story, and John has it on video. There's evidence. This was maybe like 4 years ago, and probably around the time where this was like a new concept for me, and I had shared with him what the like crimes against wisdom, right? So then we started noticing it in our life and like, oh, you're doing that. But there was one day where I had, I was like balancing vata, right? So I'm avoiding crunchy and cold and rough. I'm going for this like soft kapha qualities. And I was in the pantry and John was eating a lot of cereal at the time. And cereal, I would like, we're like, no, you can't have cereal. Like, it's vata aggravating. Like, it's crunchy and it's rough. Don't do it. And I think it was the fall time too, because I remember in the video I'm like wearing a sweater, and he comes out of the office. He had like heard me in the pantry, like digging in his cereal, and he comes out of his office and like films the camera, and my mouth is like chipmunk cheeks full of crunchy cereal. And I just like taken a handful and eaten some. And then he was like giving me a hard time for it. And at the end of the video, I'm like cracking up, like rolling around on the floor because I had been caught, right? Like committing a crime. And I'm like, I just wanted something crunchy. And it was a very funny, maybe I may have to show the video at some point, but because it, I think it to the point of like, we all do it, right? Like we all have these little crimes that we commit that we know, okay, maybe that wouldn't be the most supportive thing to eat right now, but I was like, I just wanted something crunchy. So I think just to, I don't know, hopefully like bring some relativity to people listening in that, yes, it's a crime against wisdom, but like, it's okay.
Yeah. You just needed something crunchy, like.
Yeah.
I'll have to send me the video or post the video someday.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah. Trying to think if we missed anything on here. I think general themes that we've really been ranting on are just, again, the humanness of it all and bringing the curiosity into it. And knowing that crimes against wisdom is one of the primary causes of dis-ease. And so it's something that we can both treat with lightness and also some level of seriousness in terms of really checking in with how those factors are connecting to our health issues, to our mental struggles, whatever it is that's coming up in our lives. Sometimes I think those things are pointing us in the direction to learn some of these greater factors that need to shift.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool. Thanks, Rita.
Yeah. Thanks, Brittni.
If you enjoyed today's episode, it would mean the world to us and help support our work if you'd like, share, leave a review, as well as subscribe to our podcast on whichever platform you use. If you're looking for more connection or would like to support this podcast, we'd love to have you join our Patreon for $5 a month. Here you'll get bonus episodes and access to our community chat Q&A.
And don't forget to check out our wellness library, which is filled with self-guided classes, kitchen tutorials, herbal recipes, and more Ayurvedic practices, all for just $5 a month. Thanks so much for being here with us. Until next time, be well.